Imagine that you have applied for your dream job. You got the response, interview went great, you're perfectly qualified. Now imagine that you got rejected because your zodiac sign is not the one that they're looking for. I mean, come on, it doesn't make any sense. This could not be happening in modern business, right? Apparently, there are more businesses that rely on, oh my god, I cannot believe I'm saying this out loud, astrology than we think. I see HR directors who are certified astrologists, small business owners who restrict their hiring with a particular years of birth, and career coaches that recommend you to switch the job when the position of the planet is right. So let me break this down. What is this as a phenomenon? Why is this happening? And is there any truth in it? I bet you can hear the sound of the rain. If you don't know, I live in the Netherlands and I expect rain to stop somewhere in March. So if you are subscribed to this channel, then you will hear the sounds until the spring. Here's some statistics. 24% of small and medium-sized businesses in Russia consider the use of esoteric tools, esoteric tools in making business decisions like astrology, numerology, and tarot as useful or rather useful. And Russia has one of the highest percentage of people with higher education in the country and generally tend towards more rational values. There are other countries where esoteric doctrines are traditionally popular, but apparently even in US, around 30% of people believe in astrology. If you don't know, astrology is based on the idea of predicting events and making judgments based on the position of celestial bodies. And astrology is officially recognized as pseudoscientific. Maybe you can already sense by my tone, but for me, the idea of using something like that in decision making is totally unjustified. If you disagree with me, I understand that and accept that. Nevertheless, I personally believe in scientific approach, critical thinking, and I based my judgment on the data. So recently I came across several articles about the use of astrology and numerology in HR. So I decided to dive a little bit deeper, and to my surprise, I found out that it's not a new trend. Some things like that were mentioned 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 years ago. Now, what form does it take in HR? First of all, it is recruitment based on some type of astrology. We all understand that hiring people is a challenging task, and sometimes a hiring mistake can cost company a lot. Therefore, some people are using various methods to ensure that the candidate is the right fit. And even the fact that these methods are not scientific or not objective doesn't stop them. In addition, there is a whole collection of superstitions that relates to these non-scientific practices. For example, if someone says, well, this employee's performance is mediocre, but what did you expect? He is a Taurus. And if you've never heard anything like that, like you, or something like, yeah, it's not surprising that she failed because she was born in a year of snake. So basically, you take the events that already happening and connect to your opinion. And also, of course, there is a whole group of freelance coaches who actually suggest to use something like numerology as a technique to facilitate decision making. There is not a lot of research about things like that in a business context, but from what I've seen, it looks like a larger companies are not that affected by that as smaller or medium-sized ones. And what surprised me the most is that even quite well-educated people can also participate in this kind of things. Now, why this doesn't work? The scientific methods relies on empirical evidence, which means that all the claims should be tested and the results should be replicable. The scientific consensus is that astrology has a predictive power, not beyond a random chance. Also, in scientific research, we use control groups to compare the outcomes, and there is no such thing in astrology. My favorite argument is, but it worked for me. The thing is, we all fall for confirmation bias, which means that we tend to remember the cases where something that astrology predicted were correct and tend to forget the cases where it was wrong. But apart from that, the idea that people's qualities and abilities are defined by their dates and year of birth or these kind of factors, apart from it not being scientific, I personally find it deeply unfair. And I can imagine how extremely frustrating it is when you are on the receiving end of this kind of judgment. For example, you applied for a dream job and you got rejected because of this. Now, let me explain you why I think this is happening, meaning why in the modern business, HR sometimes uses these practices. Here's an important thing. The same person, the same individual can be more or less inclined to believe in non-scientific things. For example, during the times of a crisis or uncertainty, or when the society is in the informational space where something is always inconsistent and you can always feel that something is kind of hidden. When we are in situations like that, sometimes we tend to conclude that there are secrets being hidden from us that explains everything that is happening. Some research shows that during crisis, people are more inclined to believe in abnormal things. And there is an increased interest in esotericism or any other things that has a potential of explaining what is going on. And it's difficult to blame people for this because it's a reaction of our brain on situation of fear, anxiety, lack of information. And it sometimes leads people to become more pseudoscientific. Moreover, people in science usually give you all kinds of disclaimers. They explain the limitations of their research and try to be less misleading. When if you talk about esoteric practices, it is very easy to confidently and with a poker face promise to find the right candidate by a LinkedIn profile picture. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to blacken HR as a function, because we need to remember HR is a service function. It serves the company. So if you're an HR manager in a small business and the business owner tells you that he would never ever hire an Aquarius in his life, like what choice do you have but to accommodate that one way or another? By the way, did you notice that astrology for some reason is kind of considered a little bit more a female thing, not the male one? That's why when we look at the results of this surveys, when we survey HR professionals and business owners about if they use astrology or not, there is a reason to believe that not all men admit that they use it because it is considered as something unmanly. Also, I've heard a few times that looks like Gen Zs are a little bit more into astrology than previous generations, but I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that. Need more research. In any case, using astrology, esoteric practices, all of that in business decision making, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I sincerely hope that it would not become a permanent trend in HR practice, which, to be honest, I kind of doubt. If you're new to my channel, I mostly work in tech, but I also worked in HR in smaller and bigger companies. And I don't recall anyone super explicitly admitting that they would use astrology or numerology or tarot or any of that sort. But sometimes you don't even need to admit it out loud. It's enough if you think this and you toss a resume aside because of the date of birth. I hope that you approach your decisions with rational head and aware of your biases. Thank you for watching.